last time, it gave me like a little notification.
All right, everybody, we will be starting in about 30 seconds.
That way you can see the questions come across.
Yeah, make sure you turn up your volume, Brett.
And you're further back now than you were before, Mike, so hopefully the sound will be okay.
Yeah. Well, after we start, we'll move it up.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Tri-State Facebook Live broadcast. My name is Brittany from the recruiting department, and we're excited to have everyone join in. However, if you are driving at this time, please tune in at a later time because we'll have this up about 72 hours. Today we have Network Optimization Manager Chris Stevens, who is also our Qualcomm expert. Please send in any questions that you may have for Chris and we'll get them answered. Chris?
Thanks, Brittany. So I'm excited to be here today. Today we're going to be talking about Qualcomm enhancements, what we're doing to change the face of Qualcomm in terms of the macros you guys are currently using, the ones you may be using in the future, and how it affects the quantity of messages, the information you're receiving, and stuff of that nature. So we're going to go over that. A couple weeks ago, as Russ mentioned last week, there was a driver council meeting, and one of the primary items that came up was the Qualcomm, the quantity of messages, the information on those messages, the repeat messages, just everything in general. There was a lot of information, and as everybody knows, when we haul explosives and haz waste, there's a lot of information to be had that you guys need on the road to be able to perform your jobs. Now, having said that, there's also information that you don't need to have redundant of, and so hopefully the enhancements that we're going to bring to you will turn around and cut down those messages, make it a little bit easier to read. And hopefully at the end of the day, you guys will like these enhancements. They're coming from you guys, and we're looking for input on these changes. So for the first item I want to talk about is the routing. This change went into effect a while ago. Basically what we used to do is you would get a routing for your load, and it would be 3, 4, 5, 6 Qualcomms long in terms of turn-by-turn directions. A lot of feedback was, can we shorten this up? And so we did. Some of you may have already noticed this. We've consolidated that down to 1, maybe 2 Qualcomm messages for your turn-by-turn routing. We've already gotten some feedback on how we can kind of clean that up, but we're looking for more to see if what you guys are currently seeing is, number 1, is it readable? Number 2, more importantly, is it accurate? So if you're finding that the routing that we're sending you is not accurate or could be designed a little bit better so you guys can understand it a little bit better or easier to read for the eyes, just let us know. We'd like to hear that feedback, and we're continuing to work on that routing, or we're going to continue to work on that routing in the near future. So definitely send us your feedback on the routing. The second item I want to talk about is a daily check call. Way back when we created Daily Check Call, it was designed for you guys to let us know when you guys are ready for your next dispatch. That was a confusing question to a lot of people because some people thought, well, I have like 3, 4 pre-plans, so I'm not ready till next week because I'm already stacked up. But that's not how we viewed the PTA in operations. So because of the confusion between operations and what we expected on those Qualcomms, we decided to go ahead and eliminate that. If you haven't already received a Qualcomm or talked to your driver manager, we're no longer requiring the daily check call. It actually is officially gone from your mobile comm unit effective yesterday. If you still see it on there, you can let us know, but it should not be on there anymore, nor are we going to require it from you guys. We're going to eliminate that whole confusion. How we're going to manage your PTA is strictly internally. Your driver manager will coordinate with you to come up with the best PTA possible, and what that means in return is less confusion for everybody, the drivers, the driver managers, and even the planners who use that PTA to find the best effective pre-plan for you going forward. And I didn't mention this. Obviously, send in your questions as I'm talking about these macros. Brittany will let us know if there's any questions that come up, and I'll feel free to answer them as we go. The third thing I want to talk about is a load to call or depart shipper. So over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have modified the load to call / depart shipper in numerous ways. Internally, how it works for us, but more importantly for you guys, we've added and even subtracted some fields. There was some input that stated we needed to add some container fields, because when you guys pick up twist lock trailers and containers, we need to know what the container field is. We've also added the TCN, the NSN, pallet count, and some other fields in there that was important for operations to know this information. We needed to know this information in order to book appointments with military shipments and possibly even some commercial shipments. So what we're looking for from you guys on this is, what else can we add or what else can we modify on the load to call to make it easier for you guys? We're looking to subtract a couple things from that here in the near future, but we need to work out some internal details on that first. I know the load to call is one of the biggest macros we have out there today. And there's a lot of information that we require from you guys to send in to us. We're going to continue to work hard to modify that and simplify it as much as possible, so it lessens the amount of time that you guys spend on the Qualcomm itself. The goal here is, we don't want you spending hours and hours and hours of time throughout your week on the mobile comm. Fill it out, get on the road, and drive safe is the name of the game. So any input you guys have on the load to call depart shipper, just let us know, and we'll definitely address it. Any questions so far?
Okay, so first question is, have the reduced message changes already happened?
Yes, actually some of those have been, and I'm actually going to be talking about one big change here later on. So I'm going to actually hold that question for the moment, because I'm going to come right back to it towards the end of my presentation.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Another question is, can we eliminate even more Qualcomm messages in the future?
The answer to that is yes. As we continue to develop the mobile comm and the messages that we require from you guys, the messages we send to you guys, we're going to continue to look at multiple ways on how to consolidate messages, find out what macros we no longer need that are basically extinct, and again, continue to streamline this as much as possible. So our end goal is still to provide you guys with the most accurate information possible, but in the least amount of macros possible. We understand that you guys could, end up getting 20, 30, 40 macros in a day, how many loads you have and stuff like that. It's still information you're going to need, but how can we consolidate it and make it easy for you guys to read, understand, and still be consolidated into one macro? So, good question. The third macro I want to talk about is the empty call, or the macro 7. There was a couple things on this. Russ actually partially talked about this in the last Facebook Live, and we've asked multiple times internally, what don't we need on this macro? There were some items on here that we were thinking, do we really need this piece of information? And we're still talking through that. We haven't officially made any announcements on that yet, but we're looking at possibly taking some items off of that macro to make it even smaller than what it is today, which in turn for you guys means less information you have to type in. Hopefully we'll have something out in the next couple weeks on that, and when that happens, we'll let you know. And the 3 items that Russ alluded to last week, and I don't want to quote them because unfortunately I didn't write them down myself, but he's talking about, is the equipment DOT legal? Are the directions information correct? And were you treated with respect? And the most important thing I want to talk about at the moment is, were the directions and information correct? Right now we have a campaign going on internally with our locations, with Crane, with Tooele, with everywhere you currently visit on the road, and we're tackling the item of directions or instructions. We have consolidated locations over the past 10, 15 years between the 3 companies, SLT, Tri-State, R&R. And what has happened, as Russ mentioned last week, is that we have compiled it instead of editing it and making it simplified to one set of instructions. So our goal is to get those down, streamline it a little bit more, and make it consolidated enough to send you the information of what you need and only what you need. And that's where we're going to need your help. So until we get this into place, we definitely want your continued feedback. But the goal behind this is we're going to automate this. When we put these 3 questions into place, the directions, information, correct question, and if you say the answer is no, it wasn't, it's going to automatically send an email to the people in charge of looking at the location codes and updating those directions or instructions correctly. And we're going to ask for your feedback to let us know, well, what was wrong with it and what should we change it to. And the automation that we're going to put on there, instead of going and sending another Qualcomm message and another email and another, we're going to automate this process to make it easier and faster to address. And hopefully by the next time you go into that facility, everything will be updated and ready to go. So, good.
Yep, few things that came
Okay.
through. First one was just kind of a concern that was thrown out there. Dave says we can only check Qualcomm when stopped. Obviously, the most frustrating thing is getting a Qualcomm message 20 minutes after we leave a stop, but we need to get some miles. Is there anything that you can address with concerning that?
Yeah, I can. So for the souls out there, that's correct. Your mobile comm is designed not to be able to check messages as you're driving down the road. We all know the reason why behind that, and it is frustrating. We've asked the DMs internally to kind of recognize that if there's an emergency, just give you a quick call and say, hey, I need you to stop for a second, something changed, or whatever the case might be. For teams, however, that's not necessarily the case. Your team driver should be able to read his or her Qualcomm message while the driver is doing exactly that and driving down the road. If your mobile comm isn't set up that way, just contact the shop. We'll address it. But in a team environment, you should be able to check your Qualcomm messages as you're going down the road. Of course, being said, the passenger is checking the Qualcomm, not the driver. So.
Okay, awesome. Dennis Ellings commented in and said, can they make the message editable after sending? And there's a small error. It would be nice to be able to correct the message without redoing the entire message.
Yeah, that's definitely been a concern. I've heard that quite a few times. I know one of the popular ones is I put the wrong trailer number in, or I put the wrong load number in. One of the things we're trying to streamline is, we've asked the DMs to ask you guys to resend your macros so you understand that you put the wrong load number in or the wrong trailer number in. And the reason why we do that is to ensure that on the paperwork that you're submitting to us has that correct information as well. The last thing we want to see is you put load number 1, 2, 3, and it's really 4, 5, 6, for instance. So they ask you guys to do that on purpose for that particular reason. But as far as editing it, we kind of let the DM at the current moment manage that, whether he or she wants to require you to send it back in or not. We kind of let that be at the discretion of the driver manager. If it was an honest mistake, we'd probably just move on and wouldn't request you to do that. At the moment, we don't have the ability to edit the macro, but it's definitely something we can definitely take a look at. Let me write it down before I forget. Any other questions before I?
Sharon Wittenberg says, please put it back so we can only have to hit the reply key twice to accept loads.
Reply key twice. So say that one more time. I'm trying to understand that one.
Please put it back so we only have to hit the reply key twice to accept loads.
Sharon, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one because I'm not 100% sure what you mean on that one. So let me give you a call on that one, or if you want to give me a call sometime later this afternoon, we can talk that out, and I can help address that. So. Anything else?
Jackie Hensel says, Chris, we need accurate contact information from the shipper and at the consignee. Most of the time the numbers are incorrect and we can never get a hold of the consignee upon delivery.
That is a huge concern, Jackie. Thanks for joining us. We've been trying to address that for a while. We have multiple locations to put phone numbers in, multiple POCs. As you guys are already familiar, if you go to Crane or Kentucky or these other various locations, you might be dealing with contact number 1, but then tomorrow you might deal with contact number 2. And the dilemma becomes, how do we get that into the order so you guys get the correct information? One of the items we're trying to address right now, or we are addressing right now, was that we are looking at how we can automate one specific field for the CSR to put in the information or the contact information and or phone number that you need when you show up at said location. We know there could be 10 contacts for one base, but you might only have to deal with that one specific contact. So right now, Vonda is currently pushing or in charge of that particular committee. She is actually leading that charge with all the CSRs, and hopefully, they've already started cleaning some of that up. My job is to automate that for you guys, and hopefully you'll start to see some positive results in the next few weeks, and then even going forward. That's part of this whole cleanup process with locations we've been trying to address. So hopefully you'll start to see some improvements here relatively soon. Okay. Let me go on here and talk about Zeman information. And this is a big one. When we zoom in a pre-plan to you currently, you guys get anywhere between 5, 6 Qualcomms up to 10 or 20. It all depends on how big the load is, how many stops it is, how many different directions there are. So you get all this information, these 10, 15 Qualcomm messages that we've asked you to read through, take a look at all the details, and then in return we ask you to send us a response that says yes or no. And then on top of that, when you send your empty call, we do it again. And then you get the same 20 messages that come across your Qualcomm. And so now your Qualcomm is just cluttered with the same message over and over. So what we've done, effective Monday, we have changed the way we're going to send you a pre-plan. When your driver manager sends you a pre-plan now, he is only going to send you your dispatch instructions, which is page 1. It is labeled dispatch instructions on your Qualcomm. You will only get the pickup location, delivery location, extra stops, times, special instructions if there are any in there. And that's it. What it is you need. We basically ask the question, what do you need in order to make a decision if you can do that pre-plan or not? And the answer that we came up with, and even with the driver council, was page 1. That's all we really truly need is page 1. So effective Monday, we're implementing this process. Internally, your driver managers will send you a pre-plan. It'll only be page 1. Then when you send your empty call, and only then, will you receive the rest of the information. Okay? We have gone through the Qualcomm messages. This is about a 40% cut in Qualcomm volume to your Mobilcom. I think you guys will definitely like this. It was something you guys actually requested. It's been on the platform for quite some time, so hopefully in the next week or two, you will see the huge cut, you'll like the cut, and we're looking for your input. Give us a thumbs up if it works out. If this is perfect, and if it's not, let us know what else you see. And so internally we made that change, and then you guys will end up seeing the results effectively come Monday. So hopefully you guys like that. And basically the last thing I had on here was the MCP 200s. Just a brief topic about this. I know some of you guys are still out there. You might be still running under the MCP 50s or the 100s. If you are, we encourage you to work with the shop and your driver manager to get yourselves into either Joplin or Phoenix and get that switched out. The MCP 200 allows DriveWise, which is a huge benefit to you guys. It has a larger screen. It has a full keyboard display on there. And overall, I think your experience on the Qualcomm will be a lot better if you have the 200. So contact the shop, contact your DM, make arrangements to get into the shop and get that changed out as soon as possible. And I think it'll help you out, in the course of your career with us. So.
Pedro Gonzalez says, any chance solos can at least listen to messages while driving?
Pedro, good question. That question actually came up a while ago, and we've been wanting to address that. We're trying to figure out the best way to do it. We want to transform this just like a cell phone would, where it pops up and says, you have a new message, and it reads just like a text message. Right now, to my knowledge, the MCP 200, we're trying to see if it will be configurable to be able to do that. Basically like an auto read. I don't know if it's possible or not. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I know it's something we've been wanting to try to do. I want to write that down. And that was Pedro, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I'll write it down, and if we get some updates on it, we'll definitely let you know. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's even capable with the 200 or not, and if it is, we'll definitely shoot for it.
Awesome. Donna Brown says, how about getting games back on Qualcomm?
Games and the internet has been a couple items that have been discussed. Unfortunately, I can't really give you a good answer on that one. I'll have to talk with a couple people here, see if it's something we want to implement. It is available, but I can't tell you that's something we're going to look at the moment. But we'll ask the question. So.
Okay. Dennis Elling says, why can't we just request directions if needed, and not directions to places that we have been to hundreds of times?
Dennis, that's a good question. Partially because, when we make the assumption that basically what we would be doing on our side is we would assume that driver that's asking for the directions knows where they're going or not going. We've had too many cases where people have said, well, the directions were wrong, or I never got the directions is actually the most popular one, and they end up in the wrong location. And so instead of waiting for you guys to request it, and you actually have to fill it on the Qualcomm request directions, you got to type in the code, you got to find the code and do all that search and then actually go do it. We've always thought it was better if we just gave it to you in the messages. I think one of the things you'll find is that with the 40% cut in mobile comm messages and not getting it until you need it, I think you'll see a huge benefit from that alone. We've always wanted to make sure that we actually provide you, because it's our job to provide you with the correct information. And we don't want to assume anything in this realm. We want to make sure you have the correct information. I'm not saying it's something we can't get away from. We do have the ability to get away from it if we so choose, but it's something we got to talk with safety about and see if we want to go down that route. So, good question though, Dennis.
Carol Meeks Howell says she doesn't like having to put in the passcode all of the time to look at other driver logs.
That is a safety question. I can't really allude or give you a good answer on that one, unfortunately, Carol. Let's write it down. Two logs. Yeah, Carol, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have a good answer on that, and I'll have to get with safety. So.
Miguel Escalante says, how about Wi-Fi on the Qualcomm?
Miguel, are you talking specifically about trying to connect your phone through the Wi-Fi? Because I know, if I remember correctly, the MCP 200 actually has Wi-Fi capabilities to connect to another Wi-Fi. But if you're trying to look at using it as a hotspot, if that's your question, then I don't have a good answer for you on that one. I'll have to ask. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for all the good questions. I know I didn't have an answer for some of these. I'll definitely get back to you guys that ask those questions, and let you know how, get you those answers. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week.